Hello and welcome to the Crystal Palace podcast. I'm Alfonso Greenbrook and today pod 50 I'll be looking over a result against Man United by bringing you my match review, player rankings and my man of match. As well as this, I'm also going to bring you an exclusive interview with Sam Allardyce and Sully Kaikai after the game. So let's begin. Two first-half goals in the space of 4 minutes saw Palace's 2016-17 Premier League campaign end in defeat against Manchester United at Old Trafford. Having survived relegation a week before, Sam Allardyce and his players can still feel pleased with their efforts in the second half of the season, ultimately rendering this final fixture a dead rubber which saw just Harrop and Pogba net goals that claimed the victory for the hosts. Results elsewhere meant that Palace finished the season in 14th position, 7 points clear of the drop zone which they would have happily accepted just a few months ago. It was 12 months to the day that the two sides had faced it off in the FA Cup final, but with another chance of a trophy on the horizon, United's starting 11 was vastly different to the one that had beat Palace at Wembley. Jose Mourinho selected a number of youngsters mixed with a blend of star power ahead of their Europa League final meeting with Ajax on Wednesday, but the blend gelled quickly to carve out the game's opening chance on 11 minutes, when debutant left-back Dimitri Mitchell picked out Wayne Rooney. But the Red Devils' all-time leading scorer lobbed the ball over Wayne Hennessy, but only onto the roof of the net. However, just 3 minutes later it was bulging, as Mourinho's men bagged the opener through another first-team debutant. A fine pass by Paul Pogba with the outside of his foot released Harrop, who sped into the area, cut inside Martin Kelly and had time to compose himself before firing past Hennessy to mark his United debut in style. And 4 minutes after that, the world's most expensive player found a second to give Palace a mountain to climb. Jesse Lingard showed some strong direct running to take the ball from the halfway line to the edge of the box, and then played it into the path of the on-rushing Pogba. Joe Ward couldn't quite intercept it, allowing the Frenchman to slide home the chance and reduce the Eagles' chances of claiming a first ever Premier League win against the Red Devils to a slim possibility. It continued to be one-way traffic following the passing of the hour mark, and Harrop once again went close when he tried to curl the ball into the top corner after a sustained period of home pressure, with Palace's only threatening moments of the opening half coming at either end of it, when the two last-ditch tackles from Eric Bailly denied Patrick Vieira and Ivory Coast teammate Wilfried Zaha the chance to test the rookie keeper Joe Pereira. Things got much better for the Eagles after the restart, and 9 minutes into the second half they nearly got back into it when Zaha managed to send a cross to the far post where Christian Benteke was waiting, and he cranked back his neck to guide a header goalwards but saw that strike off the post before being cleared. Before the game, rumours were swirling that it could be Wayne Rooney's Old Trafford swan song, and you could sense his desperation to get on the scoresheet from the first whistle. And he nearly achieved that at the wrong end when he was fortunate to see an attempted clearance from a Bakary Saka free kick past the post, and a minute later Luka Milivojevic saw a screwed effort fly well over. The Serbian then called Pereira into action for the first time on 76 minutes, when he bent a free kick around the wall, but the young Portuguese stopper produced a diving catch to stop it creeping in. But with the minutes ticking down towards the end of the league season, there was very little further action, with the withdrawal of Wayne Rooney to a standing ovation the only moment of note, as another helter-skelter season for Palace came to its conclusion. A Crystal Palace side already assured of safety and a Manchester United team looking ahead to Wednesday's Europa League final with Ajax combined to produce a match lacking real intensity. Palace really never looked like scoring in Sunday's 2-0 defeat, while United barely needed to move out of second gear. It was a tepid end to a difficult season. Now for some positives from the game. It was a positive that after conceding 2 goals so early on in the game, Palace didn't let their guards drop even further. Previous encounters in which Palace have conceded early goals have often resulted in more goals being conceded. Now for some negatives from the game. Wilfried Zaha was the constant victim of rough treatment from United players, with referee Anthony Taylor failing to punish it adequately. He limped off with an injury with 10 minutes remaining. Crystal Palace's rollercoaster season ended in defeat as they went down 2-0 at Old Trafford on Sunday against Manchester United. First half goals from debutant Josh Harrop and Paul Pogba were enough for Jose Mourinho's men as Palace finished the campaign with a defeat, their 21st defeat in the Premier League this season. But what do we learn from the game? Here are 5 things. Number 1. The 100 is up. Crystal Palace will go down in the history books after this game, but for the wrong reasons, as 21-year-old Josh Harrop became the 100th even goal scorer for Manchester United in the Premier League with the side's first goal. Number 2. No fairy tale return. Wilfried Zaha was back at Old Trafford where it never really worked out for him, and it didn't on this occasion either as the Palace winger was left frustrated by a succession of fouls on him throughout the game. He went off limping after 78 minutes but did get a good reception from the United fans as he made his way down the tunnel. Number 3. Who says you can't win anything with kids? Manchester United made several changes for this game, with Jose Mourinho involving several youngsters from the under-23 side. And they impressed with Josh Harrop the pick of the bunch with his fine strike to open the scoring. Number 4. The Travelling Eagles make themselves known. Crystal Palace may not have won the game on the pitch, but their fans certainly made themselves heard as always at the Theatre of Dreams. They were heard taunting the home fans for their lack of noise, although to be fair to the United faithful, they did wake up in the second half and give the Eagles supporters something to compete with. And number 5. The Old Trafford hoodoo continues. Crystal Palace have not scored at Old Trafford since their return to the Premier League in 2013, and that remains the case after a disappointing defeat here on the final day. Manchester United seem to have something over Palace, with the Red Devils being the only side the Eagles have faced in more than 2 seasons and failed to beat in the top flight. So now you've had the match report, we're now going to move on to the player ratings. But before we start, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Crystal Palace for all the latest news. And for all you Facebook users out there, don't forget to check out our Facebook group so you can join in with discussions, read the latest news and post your own opinion. So like I said there, if you're on social media and you do want to get in contact with us, then of course you can follow us on both Twitter and Facebook, and you can find both these pages by using the @eCrystalPalace. Now I personally would recommend you do follow us on both these pages because we do regularly update them with the latest news. So if you do like to keep up to date with all things Palace, then of course our accounts are the places to go, and this can include things like player and manager interviews after the game. So if you do like to hear what the manager and what the players had to say after the game, whether it be disappointing or joyful or good result, then of course head over to our Twitter account, get all the latest news there, get all the latest articles and interviews. So obviously you've got a place there to receive all the news. And you know, a thing that's also been quite popular on Twitter recently, and that is Twitter polls. So we do occasionally post Twitter polls, so if you're a kind of person who likes to go onto Twitter and vote and have your opinion heard on anything about the club, whether it be transfers, points, transfer targets, anything like that, then of course do give us a follow, so when we do post a Twitter poll you can of course get it into your feed. And obviously if you are on Facebook, of course, you know, you can follow the main Facebook group, the main Facebook page. But if you are on Facebook, I personally would highly recommend you do join the Facebook group, and that's obviously I'm a member of that as well. So if you do ever want to get in contact with me, then of course you can use the Facebook group. But much like the main social media page, you can find it on Facebook by using the @eCrystalPalace group, and of course all the links will be in the description below. But like I said at the beginning, obviously I'm a member of this group, but I would highly recommend you do join the group, because on there, after the game, quite a lot of fans go on there to post their own opinion on how they thought the players performed, how they thought the match went, or anything else they saw in the game which they wanted to point out. And the reason there is the Facebook group is because it's a great place for fans to share their opinion. And I know personally, from my own preference, I like to go on forums and go on Facebook groups to read what other fans had to say, because it's nice to hear your opinion, or it's nice to share your opinion, but also you want to hear what other fans had to say about the game to see whether you've got a similar opinion, and also they may mention something that you might have missed from the game, so it gives you that sort of idea about the game. And certainly, even if you don't want to do that, you know, post something from the game, if you had some pictures or videos from the game, put it all onto the Facebook group, because I'm sure there's people who weren't able to go to the game, and by posting the pictures on there, you know, people can see the game from your perspective. But also, you know, I'm sure that there's quite a lot of people who just want to see the display, and especially the Homestead Fanatics banners a few weeks ago. They were fantastic, and I know a few people posted pictures in the group. So if you're the kind of person who likes to post your own opinion, write your own opinion, but also read what other fans had to say and sort of communicate with other fans about their opinion and compare your opinion to theirs, then of course do join the Facebook group. And like I said, I'm personally a member of it, so if you ever do want to get in contact with me, then of course you can do it via that. But like I said, If you do have any pictures as well, do feel free to post them in the Facebook group. But like I said at the beginning, if you do want to follow any of these social media pages, then of course you can use the @ or you can use the links in the description below. Now obviously if you are listening to the podcast on YouTube, then of course you can drop a comment below the video on what you thought about the game and who you thought the standout player was for Palace. And obviously this is because I personally want to hear your opinion of the game. And how I've done this in the last few weeks is I've set a challenge to the listeners, and that's something that quite a lot of people have done, and that is for you to list your player ratings, rating all of the players from 1 to 10, with obviously 1 being the best and 10 being the with 1 being the worst and 10 being the best. And this is obviously how you thought the players performed throughout the game. And the only reason I want you to do this is, yes, I want you to comment below the video with your opinion from the game, but later on in the podcast I'll go on to give you my player rating. So what I want you to do is to write yours in the YouTube comments so I can compare my opinion to yours. And I've seen people do this in the past. It's a great way to see whether we have similar opinions about players, or whether we thought a player had a better performance than maybe I would have thought, or whether I thought a player had a better performance than other fans thought. So if you do like to get involved and share your opinion, much like the Facebook group, then of course do drop a comment below in the YouTube videos with your player ratings, obviously so I can get an idea of how you thought the players performed. And considering it's the last game of the season, it'd be nice to see who you thought, put in the most effort at the last game of the season. And even if you don't want to do that, you don't want to drop your player ratings, then of course drop anything below the video you want to say. So much like the Facebook group, you can post anything about the game, what you saw in the game, about the manager's view, anything like that you want to post in the group, then of course in the YouTube comments, feel free to do that. And also later on in the podcast, after the player ratings, I'm going to talk about the man of the match. So if you do want to drop below in the YouTube comments as well as the player ratings, but drop your man of the match just to give me an idea of who you thought the best player was for Palace. But obviously if you do want to keep up to date with all things Palace, then don't forget to follow us on both our Twitter, Facebook page, join the Facebook group, and also, like I said, do drop a comment below the video and subscribe in the YouTube comments. But enough of that, now to move on to my player ratings. Starting in goal with Wayne Hennessy, who I am going to give a 6. 2 shots faced, 2 conceded. Couldn't do much for either goal and barely had a save to make for the rest of the game. Might as well have played Speroni. So obviously Wayne Hennessy here, I've given him a 6, and although many people I know on social media have been criticising him, I personally didn't think he'd done too much wrong throughout the game. And although that stat I said does sound a bit daunting, the fact that he had 2 shots faced on goal and we conceded 2 goals, although that seems quite bad from a goalkeeper's perspective, I don't think he could really do much for either goals, because if you look back at the replays, we were pressing forward, trying to go on the counter-attack, we were left exploited at the back. The first one, Kenny got turned by the youngster, and in the second one Joe Ward tried to make a block, almost made the block and almost done enough to block it, but then ultimately that wasn't enough, and then Man United went on to score their second. So I can't really blame Wayne Hennessy for that. Yes, people may say he was static and he didn't try and move, but at the end of the day, the Man United players were able to get past our defenders, turn them over, put them on the floor, and then score from that. So personally, I don't think we can blame him for either goal. People may criticise him, like I said, for not moving. And if you look, he did try and make a last, ditch sort of dive to try and save it. But at the end of the day, the players got past the defender. Hennessy's seen it late, and obviously he's not able to make the save. But other than that, other than them 2 goals, much like the rest of the team in the second half, he played much better. But that's mainly because he didn't really have much to do. And unlike in past games, he didn't really make any mistakes, but then also he didn't really have anything to do anyway. And to be honest, it does pose the question whether Speroni could have played this game. I've seen a lot of people on social media saying, we should have let Speroni, have a game just to sort of, congratulate him on his new contract, to help him build up them appearances to even further break the record and make it his own. But certainly I think, much like what Allardyce said, Wayne Hennessy's played well. Yes, he's had some bad spells, but he's played well this season, and at the end of the day, unless he was injured, Hennessy was going to play. And I think it's credit to Hennessy, and I think it's a reward for him. You're not going to take him out last game of the season. He's played well for the most part of the season under Allardyce, so reward him for that, for letting him start the last game of the season. But certainly I think in a transfer window we're probably going to lose one of our keepers. I personally think it would be Mandanda. Mandanda's linked with a move back to Marseille, so if Mandanda goes back to Marseille, then we're going to need another goalkeeper. And even if someone like Pickford or Heaton comes in, or Joe Hart even if these sort of 3 players do come in, then maybe Hennessy might get demoted. But even if we don't get someone, I certainly think Hennessy could be pushing for that first spot next season, because he's shown this season he's got the skills, he's got the technique to be a really good goalkeeper. and with the goalkeeping coach we've seen an improvement, but what he's got to do now is try and improve his game even more, try and get even more quicker on his feet to get to dives, and also you just got to try and be a little bit more consistent and try to get out the errors from the game. But certainly a 6 for Wayne Hennessy, although he didn't have to do much throughout the game, we can't really blame him on the 2 goals, but questions have been raised about whether Speroni should have started the game. Now to move on to the left back Jeffrey Schlupp, who I'm going to give a 6. Did his job, but that may well have been because most of the United attack was coming down the other side of the pitch. Covered a lot of ground up and down the left wing, but the service to Christian Benteke could have been better. So obviously Jeffrey Schlupp here, I've given him a 6, and much like the whole squad, although he didn't have his best performance, he certainly wasn't at fault for any of the goals we conceded, and I personally thought, especially in the second half, he actually had a pretty decent performance. And like I said in the introduction there, you know, his job was obviously to play as the left back, to stop crosses coming into the area, and obviously to provide a bit of pace and a bit of width down the left hand side where he was. And certainly he'd done his job, and he'd done exactly what was expected of him. And to be honest, you may say because United were mainly attacking down the right hand side and mainly attacking Joe Ward, you could expect, you know, Jeffrey Schlupp to have an easier game, and certainly it did show throughout the game, the fact that he didn't really have to be challenged that very often. But whenever an attack came down sort of the left hand side from United, of course Jeffrey Schlupp was able to stop the crosses coming in, because, you know, Man United, they've got very talented young players there, and, you know, although we did lose the game, you could say, yeah, we had a few decent chances and we stopped Man United, and certainly they're not going to be pumping crosses into the box. So obviously Jeffrey Schlupp, whenever there was crosses, he managed to block them, and he'd done a pretty decent job of that. But like I said, his job was to, you know, cover the left hand side, give a bit of width, and certainly he'd done that. And that's probably the reason he had an easier game than, say, Joe Ward had, is probably because Man United most of the time were attacking down sort of that sort of right hand side of the pitch. And, you know, I've talked about him doing his job, you know, covered a lot of ground, and if you look back at the stats, he's one of these players who uses his pace quite effectively. The fact that he knows when to run, he knows when to stay back and defend, and he's got that decision making which is quite well. And although he's been quite indecisive, you know, at some parts of the season, especially when he first signed, he didn't know whether to, you know, go forward or to come back, and especially against Man City a few weeks ago, he sort of had that indecisiveness. But in this game, certainly he knew when to cover, he knew when to go forward, knew when to come back, and that actually meant he covered quite a lot of ground, because he knew when to go forward and when to attack the ball, and also when to hold back. But, you know, although that was very good in my opinion, the only thing that really lacked of his performance, because in my opinion, as a defender, he's probably the least at fault for the goals we conceded. He certainly could have done better with the service to Christian Benteke. So we know that if we put balls into Christian Benteke, if we put in the early balls, or we put in the ball from the byline, we know that Christian Benteke will be at the back post or the far post, and will be able to get his head on them. But obviously Jeffrey Schlupp, when he was going up and down the left flank, he didn't put in as many crosses as he would have liked, and that's maybe it's because he's still developing his technique and he's not quite, you know, as comfortable as some of the players are at crossing. But certainly there were a few chances in the game where, you know, we were attacking, we had some great chances, you know, especially in the second half, although it was quite boring. We could have easily put some balls into, you know, Christian Benteke to header, but unluckily for us, Jeffrey Schlupp didn't do that. And it just goes to show that, you know, Zaha later on in the game, he had a cross into Benteke. Benteke was able to rise highest than anyone, managed to hit the post, and obviously unlucky for us, it got cleared. So if we had put more balls into the box, and especially Schlupp, maybe, you know, there would have been more chances for Benteke to score. But certainly a 6 for Jeffrey Schlupp. You know, although the whole team didn't really perform and it was quite a lacklustre performance, I certainly think that Jeffrey Schlupp was probably the least at fault for the goals and did actually try to do his bit for the team. Obviously moving on now to the centre-back James Tompkins, who I am going to give a 7. Solid enough, caught out a bit for both goals, with United players making runs behind the back line. Was about a foot away from halving the deficit when a punching free kick, but otherwise spent most of the game moaning and chasing shadows. So obviously James Tompkins here, I've given him a 7, and although I said, you know, it weren't the best defensive performance and it was quite lacklustre, I still think that sort of James Tompkins' presence defensively was pretty good, and considering Man United have got the talent they had, I personally think he done a pretty solid job, and he was solid enough to get a 7. And although this may be a debatable one, I personally think both of the goals he weren't really at fault of them, because the first goal, obviously Martin Kelly got sat down, or the Man United player was able to turn Martin Kelly, and then the second goal he managed to sit Joe Ward on the ground as Joe Ward was trying to make the tackle. So really, in that respect, James Tompkins wasn't really at fault for the 2 goals, because he wasn't the player mainly involved in marking that player. But although, you know, I've given him a 7, and yes, he was, you know, solid enough, he'd done what you would expect of him, you know, still for the 2 United goals, although I'm not directly blaming him for them, he was still got caught out. So obviously the Man United players were able to make runs in behind and obviously create that opportunity. So if our defenders had been a bit more careful and a bit more aware, they would have been able to either play the player offside or maybe just to sort of stay back and make a run onto the player to make a tackle, as opposed to letting the player come at you and then obviously having a chance to score. But other than that, you know, defensively, I think he was quite sound. But I've said this in past weeks, his attacking presence was quite visible again. You know, punching his free kicks and his free kicks and set pieces have been pretty good in the last few weeks, and especially in this game. You know, punching putting a few lovely delicious balls into the area, and certainly there was one where James Tompkins connected on it and he was just about a foot away from halving the deficit. So if he had scored that, it would have been 2-1 at that point, and maybe we would have been able to, you know, get something from the game. But other than that chance which he had to score, and other than the fact that he was pretty solid, not the best, but pretty solid throughout the rest of the game, he didn't really have much to do. And considering how well, you know, United were playing, he sort of spent the rest of the game chasing shadows, so he didn't really have much to do. But, you know, Man United were the better team, and it just sort of overshadowed his performance. But certainly James Tompkins come back into this side, you know, played well against Hull, continued his form here, and although, like, defensively the whole team didn't have their best performance, I certainly think he done what was expected of him. Obviously, moving on now to the centre-back Martin Kelly, who I'm going to give a 6. He's been playing so well recently, but this one has to go down as one to forget. He was better in the second half like the rest of the team. He gave Harrop a bit too much space to cut inside and score the opener, and later on in the first half he collided with his centre-back partner Tompkins, getting an earful from the former West Ham man. So see, Martin Kelly here, I've given him a 6, and like I've said with the rest of the players, yes, it was quite a lacklustre game, we weren't at our best, but certainly Martin Kelly, he done what was expected of him. And although we could blame him for the first goal, I certainly think, other than that, the fact that we got it to 2-0, we didn't concede any more goals like we did against Man City, just shows that once we made the mistakes, we were able to remain solid and obviously carry on the game as normal. And, you know, Martin Kelly's been one of these players that is coming for the injured Saka and the injured Dan, and actually he's done a really decent job. And in recent weeks, he's been playing amazingly, and obviously, you know, we've been saying maybe, you know, if Saka doesn't sign on a permanent deal, maybe Martin Kelly or Scott Dan could be the replacement for Mamadou Sakho. And certainly in the last few weeks we've seen that with Martin Kelly, but in this game it was probably one to forget from him. And I think, you know, I've heard this on other podcasts, it's probably the psychological thing, the fact that we got the win against Hull, we thought this is brilliant, but then, you know, we thought we were safe now, we sort of relaxed a bit and the players weren't thinking about the match, and obviously that's why we lost it. But at the end of the day, like Allardyce says in his press conference, it was all about staying up. You know, yes, it would have been nice to get a result against Man United, but at the end of the day, the primary thing when Allardyce came in was to get us safe. He's done that, and certainly last week's performance certainly was a great way to end the season. But much like the rest of the team, Martin Kelly much better in the second half, and, you know, that goes for the whole team. But I must say, you know, the first goal, second half he didn't really have to do much and was better, but the first goal, you know, Harrop, just a good youngster, he scored a hat-trick, I believe, for Man United's under-23 sides against Tottenham, so he's got the quality there. But, you know, Martin Kelly, although he's been great in the last few weeks, he must have sort of let his concentration slip, gave Harrop a bit too much space on the edge of the area, and then obviously Harrop was able to curl an effort into the top corner. And obviously later on in the half, you know, he collided with James Tompkins, so they were both trying to go for the ball, and obviously there was no communication there. And then obviously afterwards, you know, with James Tompkins being the bigger man, being the more sort of leader in the team, he did have a go at him. But that's fine, because at the end of the day, you learn from your mistakes. So if Martin Kelly made a mistake, having been so good in recent weeks, it's fine for, you know, James Tompkins just to give him an earful, just to make sure that he doesn't do it again. But other than that mistake and giving Harrop too much space, much like Tompkins, I think it was a pretty solid performance, and certainly a fair 6 indeed. Also, moving on out to the right back, Joe Ward, who I'm going to give a 5. Unfortunate with the error that gave Paul Pogba the chance to score. He lost the ball under his feet and allowed the Frenchman to slot home. Although youngster Josh Harrop gave Ward a tough time, Ward looked fine for the rest of the game and played on despite re-breaking his nose again. So see, Joe Ward here, I've given him a 5, and, you know, I said we had a pretty decent performance other than sort of the first sort of half, and certainly we did do that. And Joe Ward was one of these players that had a pretty bad first half, and in the second half he played quite well. And certainly Joe Ward, I've said this with, you know, the other players, we are going to blame Joe Ward for the first goal, and it was quite unfortunate because you could see what he was doing. He was going in for the tackle, tried to make the block, but ultimately, you know, Paul Pogba, he was able to override that sort of challenge from Joe Ward and score. Because, you know, Joe Ward managed to get the ball, but he lost the ball eventually, and obviously under his feet, Paul Pogba picked up the ball again, and he was allowed to slot home. So in that case, we could blame Joe Ward for that, but unlike Martin Kelly, where he got turned by the defender, Joe Ward actually went down to the ground, tried to make a tackle, almost managed to get the ball, but obviously Paul Pogba, having the quality he has, he was able to override the challenge. So he did actually try and block it, Joe Ward, but ultimately it wasn't enough, and Paul Pogba was able to score. But other than that, in the first half, Josh Harrop kept giving him a hard time. And like I said with Jeffrey Slop, most of the attacks were coming down Joe Ward's side. Man United like to attack down their left-hand side, our right-hand side. They kept attacking down that wing. And certainly Joe Ward had quite a tough time against Josh Harrop. And that's just probably because Joe Ward, he's played all 38 of our games this season. So that's a credit to him, the fact that he's played all our games. So you could see that he was having quite a tough time, probably because his fitness and fatigue was catching up with him. But much like the rest of the squad, as the game went on, as the second half, probably after the mistake, he managed to regrow his confidence, got better as the game went on, and obviously in the second half came out a lot better. And considering he re-broke his nose, so against Man United he broke his nose, and then obviously he had the treatment for it. He broke his nose again here at Old Trafford this time, the other side of Manchester, and he still carried on playing because we had made our 3 substitutions. So that just shows the commitment he's got to the team, the fact that he have all the treatment to sort of temporarily block up his nose and stop the blood, and he carried on playing. So that, in my opinion, that is quite good commitment. The fact that he broke his nose, he could have gone off injured and us play with 10 men, but he carried on fighting through, and that's the sort of character we want in the team. Now, there is really one final point, really, in my opinion, that I've seen quite a few people debate, and I personally don't agree with it myself, but it was Paul Pogba, was Joe Ward pushed for Paul Pogba's goal? In my opinion, no, because if you look back at it, Joe Ward's gone into the challenge, almost made the tackle, but unfortunately he didn't go through enough, cleanly enough, and obviously Paul Pogba got the ball. But certainly some people have been debating whether he got pushed. I certainly just going to go over it. I'm not really going to say much. He didn't get pushed. Joe Ward went into the challenge, but certainly I know some people have said that, Pogba trying to win the ball pushed him down, but I certainly think that's not really an excuse, really. But obviously Joe Ward here, I've given him 5, really, in a summary. Had a really sort of hard time in the first half, obviously, going down for that challenge, not winning the ball, and obviously that error led to the goal. Obviously Josh Harrop kept attacking down that wing, gave Ward a terrible time, and although he got better as the game went on in the second half, he re-broke his nose, but that character to carry on and carry on the game and help the team through it is a credit to him. Now to move on to the defensive midfielder, Luka Milivojevic, who I am going to give a 6. Not his greatest performance, bullied for most of the first half by Pogba. The Frenchman ran the show before being taken off early on, after which Luka grew into the game and helped Palace grab a bit more control in the middle of the park in the second half. So obviously Luka here, I've given him a 6, and much like the whole team, although it wasn't his greatest performance, he certainly grew more into the game as the game went on. And one of the reasons I think for that is personally the fact that Paul Pogba was running the show in the middle of the park in the first half, and once he got taken off, Milivojevic was probably one of the better midfielders on the pitch, and he was able to run the show. But certainly in the first half, we know Pogba's meant to be a quality player, and finally for the first game, one of the first games this season, he's actually shown his quality with a goal and an assist. But certainly Paul Pogba, he ran the show sort of in the middle of the midfield, having some lovely touches, lovely passing, like I said, lovely goal to score. But ultimately for us, because Pogba was playing so well for the first time this season, Milivojevic did struggle against him. But once Paul Pogba got taken off, Milivojevic was probably one of the better players in that sort of in the midfield, in the centre of the park, and certainly much like the whole team, he grew into the game, but more so than the other players, he grew into the game more than them, and he helped Palace to get a bit more control in the midfield. So obviously Paul Pogba was running the midfield, controlling the play, making passes, setting up attacks, so he was doing that all for Man United. But as soon as he went off, Luka stepped up and he actually done the job for Palace, and he gave us a little bit more control, so we had a little bit more possession. And certainly in the second half, we tried our best to actually go and attack Man United, and I personally think Luka done a pretty decent job of that, but by trying to spread the ball out wide, trying to set up our attacks. And certainly, like I said, in the second half he played much better, but I personally think he helped the whole team as a whole. And considering how well he's played in recent weeks, he had another chance to score another goal, a free kick just outside the area, he managed to curl it around the wall, lovely curl on it, and obviously it was going to go in, bottom corner, but obviously the Man United goalkeeper made a save. So not only showing his defensive attributes in the fact that he can control the midfield, but also showing his set piece ability, and considering, you know, punches, deliveries at corners and, you know, our other set pieces are pretty good. But, you know, if we've got Luka, who's scored from free kicks at Olympiacos, we've seen him hit the post twice, I think, from free kicks, and had that one save. So he's got that quality to take free kicks. So hopefully in training they can make a decision about whether who should take it. And certainly he's got the quality to put deliveries in, and that showed throughout the game. But like I said at the beginning, I've given him a 6 because yes, it wasn't his best performance, considering the high standard he's set since joining the club. It wasn't really his best performance, and that's purely because in the first half, like I said, Paul Pogba did run the show and sort of, you know, bullied him off the ball for much of the first half. But much like all of the rest of the squad, slowly grew into the game as the second half went on, and obviously helped us to grab a little bit more control back in the midfield. Obviously moving on now to the midfielder James McArthur, who I'm going to give a 6. Good energy but still lacks that sharpness. Brought into the starting lineup to replace the injured Yohan Cabaye, and was Palace's best player in the first half, covering back defensively well and bursting forward to support Benteke. If Cabaye does leave in the summer, McArthur put in a reminder to Allardyce of what he can do. So to James McArthur here, I've given him a 6, and much like Luka, you know, it wasn't his best performance for Palace, but unlike Luka, I think he had sort of a flip game, an opposite game, and that's in the fact that he had good energy to start off with, so he was probably Palace's best player in the first half. But as the game went on, we did start to see his lack of sort of sharpness and match fitness, obviously because he's been injured for quite a lot of the season. But, you know, I personally thought he had a good start to the game, but as you can expect, coming back from injury, he sort of drifted off as the game went on. But even in the first half, when he was playing well, when he had that energy, he still sort of lacked that sharpness. And hopefully, with sort of the break now, the pre-season, hopefully that can help him, especially if he stays at Palace, to help grow back that fitness. But certainly, he came into the starting 11 to replace Yohan Cabaye. Yohan Cabaye's been fantastic in the last sort of 2 months under Sam Allardyce, and we haven't won a game in the last few months without Cabaye on the side. You bring Cabaye out, that's sort of lost that creativity, that control on the midfield. And although McArthur is a very good player in my opinion, he isn't quite the player that Yohan Cabaye is. And certainly, although he was Palace's best player in the first half, he didn't have the same effect as Yohan Cabaye would normally have on the side. But the thing really about McArthur's performance, which made it so good in the first half, is the fact that he covered back defensively. So although he was playing in behind Benteke, he was going back defending well, having that partnership with Luka. And obviously, when he was playing offensive in behind Benteke, he would help support Benteke by holding up the ball, passing it to him, or chipping it over to him, or even, you know, doing sort of 1-2 passes. He tried to do what he could for Benteke, but ultimately for us, you know, Man United stayed firm at the back, and it didn't really come to anything. But I've talked about how important Cabaye is. If Cabaye does leave in the summer, which is like looking a bit of 50-50 at the minute, you know, he's got a year left in his contract, I believe. He seems to like it at Palace, but maybe want to go back to France to retire. But certainly, I don't want Cabaye to leave because he's so important and integral to our team. But if he does leave, this performance certainly was, you know, James McArthur showing what he can do in the fact that he was one of the better players. You know, it's just reminding Allardyce what he can do. So Allardyce, he sort of fell out of favour. McArthur under Allardyce is not really an Allardyce player in my opinion, and we've already seen, you know, Joe Ledley's now going to leave the club. And I personally think Joe Ledley left because it doesn't really fit to his system, and obviously his contract's up. So maybe the same might happen to McArthur. The fact that yes, his contract isn't up, but maybe he might move on in the summer because, you know, it doesn't fit into Allardyce's system. But I certainly think if we can keep Cabaye and keep McArthur, that sort of squad depth as well would really help us in going forward. But like I said, you know, Yohan Cabaye's been fantastic for us this season. Hopefully he does stay, and even if he does go, I'll be really disappointed. But certainly James McArthur did show Allardyce what he can do. But James McArthur, just to really summarise, I've given him a 6. You know, unlike Luka, he was the opposite. He had a really good first half, sort of died out in the second half, obviously because he has that lack of sharpness and sort of match fitness. And certainly coming in to replace Yohan Cabaye, he done a decent job. But obviously, like I said already, he didn't really have the same sort of impact as Yohan Cabaye normally has. Now to move on to the captain, Jason Puncheon, who I am going to give a 5. Struggled to make incisive moves and caused frustration by failing to shoot when an opportunity came. Chipped in a couple of times with inviting free kicks and corners, but found chances to get on the ball and influence things from open play limited. So to Jason Puncheon here, the captain, he's been fantastic in recent weeks, but I've given him a 5 because much like the whole team, it was a very lacklustre performance, and certainly he was probably one of our worst players on the pitch. And that's not to criticise him too much, but I think Man United, they played so much better than us. They were up for it more, and that just meant Jason Puncheon had a pretty off game. And I've seen quite a lot of debate on Twitter about whether they think he should remain as captain or still even remain in the team because maybe he's not good enough anymore. I personally think he's a really good captain. He's very vocal. He tells the players what to do, but maybe he hasn't still got that quality, that playing quality. So we'll have to wait and see next season whether he still remains as the captain, but also to see whether he still starts playing. Because even though I think he's a fantastic captain, a fantastic leader, we've seen it in the last few weeks, I certainly think, especially in this game, he's sort of not as good playing wise as he used to be. But certainly, as you'll see with most teams, sometimes the captain may not be the best player on the pitch, but certainly he has an impact in leading the team. And certainly, although we were 2-0 down within sort of the first 20 minutes, in the second half we came out a lot better. And I suppose you could have a go, so you can say to the manager, or you can praise the manager and the captain for actually motivating the team to actually go out in the second half and actually try and do something better throughout the game. And certainly I think he's done that. But like I've said, I've given him 5 because he really did struggle even to make simple moves. And there was a lot of frustration. I was watching the game on the stream. I weren't able to go up to Manchester, and it did look quite frustrating because there was a few chances where he had the ball on the edge of the box. He could have cut inside or tried to have a shot, but instead of that he sort of looked, it's almost like he looked scared because he hasn't scored this season. He hasn't got that confidence, so instead of going to do a spin to get around the defender and have a shot, he's looking to get it either on his strong foot, so that's just by literally swapping it on his feet, or moving it from one foot to the other in front of the defender, by which time it would have been intercepted, or he was looking for a pass out. So that's just showing, yes, he's really good as a captain, but playing wise he's quite frustrating at the minute because he's not taking his chances. There were a few chances where he was on the edge of the box, and instead of sort of trying to transfer it to one foot and spin past the defender and have a shot, he was just trying to dribble past the player, and obviously got tackled and the ball got intercepted. So he had quite a lot of opportunities to shoot, but obviously unluckily for us he didn't shoot with them. But like I said, as a captain, fantastic. But when the opportunity came to him, instead of him spinning past the defender, having a shot, he tried to over dribble it, and obviously the ball got intercepted. And I've given him a 5 because of that. But really, there was a few set pieces which were quite inviting from him. A few free kicks into the area, which one of them connected with the head of James Tompkins. A few of the corners, got headed down, and a few corners, free kicks. That's good delivery. So that's something he's still good at. Much like Kabay, they're still very good at delivering these pinpoint, accurate set pieces. But still, other than that, chances to get on the ball, with him playing quite deep, he weren't able to get on the ball often and trying to create stuff. And even when he had the ball, he couldn't really influence the game because, like I said, when he got the ball, it was as if he was scared because he kept sort of going off the ball, trying to offload the ball, or, like I said, trying to over-dribble it, trying to overcomplicate a shot where he maybe could have just done a little sort of 1-2 between his 2 feet and obviously had a shot and got it onto his stronger foot. But certainly, Jason Puncheon, the captain, I've said this already, it wasn't his really best game, and much like the whole team, he had quite a lacklustre performance. But considering how well he was as a captain, I'm not really going to criticise him too much. But certainly next season there will be decisions to be made about whether he remains in his starting 11. Obviously, moving on now to the winger Wilfried Zaha, who I'm going to give a 7. Palace's biggest threat and a victim of rotating fouling. The only Palace player trying to make things happen, and of course he was on the receiving end of plenty of fouls. He was already the most fouled player in the Premier League this season and will end the campaign at the top of the chart for sure. So obviously Wilfried Zaha here, I've given him a 7, and this guy won the fans' player of the season. He won the players' player of the season. It just shows how good of a season he had. And in this game, once again, although it was quite a lacklustre performance from the whole team, he certainly showed what he can do, and he was certainly our biggest threat. But the thing is, really, to talk about him, yes, he was a big threat, and we didn't really have that many chances throughout the game, but he was the victim of constant rotational fouling. So Man United, they knew he was our threat, so they kept attacking him. And the thing that really frustrated me and quite a lot of Palace fans on Twitter is, yes, it's fine, Man United, they've seen he's the threat, so they're going to keep closing him down and tackling him. But certainly because it kept happening, the referee looked quite scared to give cards, because certainly because they kept persistently fouling Zaha, maybe 5-6 players could have been booked because they kept fouling Zaha, and ultimately, a foul is a yellow card. And certainly there were so many, he was on the receiving end, there were so many fouls, and obviously from United's perspective it was good because they were stopping our attacks, but from our perspective, we're trying to set up attacks and we're constantly getting bombarded with these tackles which should be booked. but obviously they're not. And if you look back at the stats, you know, I talked about him getting fouled. He's already the most fouled player in the Premier League, and people say he dives, but if you look at them stats, these stats are genuine stats. You know, they're not stats that are made up from how many times he's fallen over and tried to win a penalty. These is how many fouls he's had, and it just shows the fact that he's the top of the Premier League just shows that how good he is, really. I don't know whether to take it as a compliment, the fact that how good he is, the fact that he has to get fouled to stop him attacking, or whether it's a bad thing, the fact that he isn't getting protection from referees and players keep kicking chunks out of him and obviously not getting booked from it. But, you know, he ended the season, or he started the game the most fouled player and then got fouled 10 times throughout the game. And like I said, maybe 5 of them could have been booked. And he ends the campaign top of the chart. So I said for sure, but I've just looked up at the stats, and actually he finished the season the most fouled player in the Premier League. So people say he dives, but you can understand why he gets frustrated and sometimes dives. But like I said, this season especially, he hasn't dived this season. You know, Watford fans especially keep going on about it. But Zaha isn't a diver, and these stats just back it up. The fact that people say he dives, when actually, if you look back at the stats and look back at the replays, as the rules say, they're all fouls. And just to talk about the fouls, he's been fouled more than any other player in the Premier League, like I said, during the season, 107 times. So that just shows, people say, oh, he dives every game. When actually, no, he gets fouled every game, because there's 38 games in the season. He's got over 100 fouls. That just shows, you know, how good of a threat he is, but also how many times he's being fouled. And another thing, really, on the opposite side, offensively, when players aren't tackling him, he's taken on players left, right and centre, and out of all of the Premier League players, he's had the most take-ons, 144. And I look back at the stats earlier on for the whole of Europe, he's only a few sort of take-ons away from Neymar, so he's up there with the quality for doing the most take-ons and the most skills. So that just shows how good he is offensively. The fact that when players are not tackling him and taking lumps out of him, he can take them on, get to the byline, put crosses in, use his skill. And once again, that's just a credit to how well he's been playing this season. But certainly, I think a 7 for this game is probably a fair result from him, considering he was probably Palace's best player. But like I said, and like the case has been for most of this season, on the end of persistent fouling. And I've said this already, you know, he ended the season with the most fouls in the Premier League, but also the most take-ons. And like I said, he's only a little bit behind Neymar. Also, moving on now to the striker Christian Benteke, who I'm going to give a 6. Handled literally nothing to go with in the first half by his teammates, and looked a very frustrated man indeed out there. Like at the beginning of the season, the service he thrives on was lacked. When Zaha did get a ball into the box to Benteke after the break, he was unlucky to see his header rebound back off the post. So obviously Christian Benteke here, I've given him a 6, and although he's played well in the last few games and he's scored a few goals, or finished the season our top goal scorer, in this game he didn't really have that many chances, and certainly in the first half he literally got handed nothing to deal with. And even though when he did get the ball, because Man United were playing quite well and they were up for it more than us, we were, obviously he wasn't able to do much in the game. And that's why I've given him a 6, because much like the whole team, it was quite a lacklustre performance. He wasn't terrible, but he's still done stuff throughout the game, but he literally had nothing to do in the first half. And you know, he did look quite frustrated. The fact that there was no balls going to him, the fact that we weren't sort of trying to play it from the back and get the ball to him, the fact that he was not getting involved, so he did look quite frustrated. And that was the case at the beginning of the season under Alan Pardew. You know, yes, we were scoring loads of goals, but Benteke looked very isolated. And certainly in this game, he thrives on sort of high balls, early balls from the byline. He likes them balls, you know, to be able to get on the end of them and head them in. But unluckily for us, or you know, luckily for Man United, we weren't able to do that. And you know, it went back to the beginning of the season where he was very frustrated up front, weren't able to, you know, get his head on opportunities and obviously score goals for Palace. But when we did get a ball to him, which is, you know, the positive, I talked about Zaha, when we did get a ball to him, it just showed his quality once again. You know, Wilfried Zaha dribbled into the box, put a lovely cross into Benteke. Benteke, you know, as we know, he's probably one of the best headers in the league and maybe Europe. Headed the ball down into the box. Oh, sorry, yeah, from the box, edge of the box, headed it down. It was just about to go in, and obviously it rambled, it smashed off the post, and obviously it was cleared. So it just shows that in the first half, yes, he was isolated, but when we did get the ball to him, and when we showed that when you get the ball to him it works, obviously he was able to get on it and was unlucky to get it off the post. Because if that had gone in, it would have been 2-1, maybe it would have been a different game. But like I said, I'm very unlucky, and the fact that he was so isolated in the first half, the fact that we came out second half so much better and actually done everything we didn't do in the second half, just shows what we were missing in that first half. And like I said, at the beginning of the season, that was our problem under Alan Pardew. It improved under Sam Allardyce, and certainly in the last few weeks it's been fantastic. We've been putting in these late balls, these early balls, the balls from the byline. So Benteke's been getting goals, but obviously in this game he weren't able to get the service he deserves. And obviously when he did get it, he was unlucky not to score. Obviously moving on now to the final player of our starting 11, and that is Patrick Van Aanholt, who I'm going to give a 5. Started at the left wing in the place of Andros Townsend, but it became increasingly apparent that as the game wore on, he wasn't giving the Palace number 10 a run for his position anytime soon. Not really an attacking force for Palace. Had a few decent touches but lacked that cutting edge. Taken off for Sulu Kaikai with 20 minutes to go. So see, Patrick Van Aanholt here, I've given him a 5, and you know, considering Andros Townsend has played so well this season, when you're coming in to replace someone who's played so well under Sam Allardyce, you can expect to struggle. And certainly Patrick Van Aanholt playing that sort of left wing role in the place of Townsend, he certainly found it quite difficult, and it certainly showed that in this game Townsend's gone off, he hasn't played due to injury, Van Aanholt's come in, and it looked quite apparent that he's not really going to be giving up his shirt very soon. So in pre-season, obviously we'll see if there be any competition for that sort of role, but based on this performance, you know, Andros Townsend has played so well in recent weeks, and obviously Patrick Van Aanholt, after scoring that crucial goal against Hull, didn't really take his opportunity to go on and obviously make a show of himself. But obviously, like I said, he won't give himself a run for money because obviously how well Townsend has played in the last few weeks. And, you know, although I personally would have played Jeffrey Schlupp maybe further forward because he's got a little bit more pace than Van Aanholt, and although Van Aanholt's better at shooting, there could have been a debate there about who should start where. I personally had him to start at, you know, in a more attacking role, but looking back at the game, it probably would have been better for him to start defensive and Jeffrey Schlupp to go attacking, because certainly, you know, Schlupp showed a bit more attacking intent than Van Aanholt did. And that's not to say he had a bad game, but playing that attacking role where he's normally playing more as a left back rather than sort of a winger, when he's played out of position, he didn't really have that attacking force of Palace. And that just goes to show, yes, he's a really good left back who's really good offensively, but he's a left back who's good at attacking from that position. But when you put him up there on his own, he's not really got that same effect as he would be sort of running from his own area, you know, playing in that left back role. You know, he did have a few sort of good touches. You know, in the first minute he managed to break into the box, had a shot, and obviously, unluckily for us, it didn't go in. So Allardyce said that was the turning point in the game, the fact that we missed that opportunity and went on to lose the game. So he had a few decent touches here and there, but lacked that cutting edge. So we know he's got that ability to score goals and to, you know, win games for Palace, but unluckily for us, like I said, I think personally he's a really good attacking left back, but he isn't really an all and out sort of attacking sort of winger. So certainly I think in the next few games, especially next season, I think we could probably play Patrick Van Aanholt as a left back and maybe push Jeffrey Schlupp further forward, only because I think he's more suited to an attacking role and Van Aanholt's better attacking from his left back role. And like I said, yeah, not the best game from him. Obviously that's why I've given him 5, and obviously because he wasn't having the best game, he wasn't really an attacking force for Palace, with us trying to push through, even get sort of a consolation goal. He was taken off with Sulu Kaikai with 20 minutes to go. Some people were debating whether Sulu Kaikai should have started. I personally think it was the right lineup from Allardyce. He wanted to go and attack, you know, Manchester United, and unlucky for us, we didn't really start the game well. Once the 2 goals went in, it sort of downed our performance. But certainly in the second half, we did improve drastically. But certainly not the best game from him, but certainly not the worst. Obviously moving on now to the substitutes, Bakary Sakho, Sulu Kaikai and Fraser Campbell. So I'm not really going to give ratings to none of these substitutes because I don't really think they were on the pitch long enough. And although, you know, I could give Kaikai and Bakary Sakho one, it's quite debatable. I personally don't think, yes, they came on the pitch and you could give them a rating, but I don't think they've done enough to get a rating. And certainly Bakary Sakho, I probably would give him a 5 if I was going to give him a rating. You know, he came on from MacArthur with about half an hour to go. He tried to deliver a number of crosses, but obviously he was putting in crosses, so he was trying to give that service to Benteke, but obviously none of them were quite accurate, and he wasn't able to find his teammate. And considering he came on for the attacking MacArthur, he's an all-in-out winger, so he's got a little bit more pace than MacArthur, but he didn't really show a great deal of threat. Same can go for Solu Kaikai, youth player. We all thought he may start the game. He didn't, but certainly came off the bench and made a really good impression. You know, he came on for Van Aanholt, like I said already, to give us a little bit more pace and a bit more attacking threat, because obviously Van Aanholt wasn't having the best effect further forward as you would have liked. And, you know, he had a few chances to show what he could do. You know, a few nice touches here. You know, when he gets the ball, he looked assured. He didn't look like he was going to, you know, give the ball away. And certainly, he done what you would expect off of him. You know, we were losing the game. You would expect him to try and get something from the game. And certainly, he done that. But certainly, Allardyce has said it in his press conference. He hopes to give sort of the youth players who he thinks can get into the first team. So maybe the under-23s, maybe some from the under-21s, under-18s. He wants to give them guys a go in pre-season. So hopefully them guys can impress him during pre-season and obviously get their chance. Because certainly Solu Kaikai, he's a really good talent, and certainly showed us in this game with a few touches here and there. But because of his lack of time on the pitch, I would have given him a 5, but overall I don't think he really had that much impact. Same goes for Fraser Campbell. No rating for him at all, because he came on sort of very late in the game. Came on for Zaha, who was injured. And like Fraser Campbell does, he's got the really good work rate. He hasn't got the quality. And once again, this game was just a perfect example of that. You know, he kept chasing Man United's defenders down, kept putting them under pressure. But ultimately, he does that really well normally, but it didn't really come to anything. But obviously, they were all of the players. Like I said at the beginning, do comment below in the YouTube comments with your player ratings. Obviously, rating all of the players from 1 to 10, with obviously 1 being the worst and 10 being the best. But I've now just got a little summary, a few bullet points, just to sort of summarise the game before I go on to talk about the man of the match. So just to start with my first bullet point, you know, we never really looked like scoring in our 2-0 defeat. I've said this already. Yes, we were bad. We weren't fantastic in the first half. We were quite lacklustre in the second half, although we did look much more better. In, you know, as the game went on, we didn't really look like scoring. And, you know, Man United, once they scored them 2 goals, they sort of parked the bus, didn't really attack us, and they didn't really have to move out of second gear. So to score them 2 goals, they didn't really have to try, because obviously our defensive mistakes led to them do that. And it was a tepid end to a difficult season. It's been a really difficult season, but like Sam Allardyce said, it wasn't about getting a result at Man United, it was about retaining our Premier League status, and that's what we need to concentrate on. We shouldn't sort of down ourselves on the fact that we lost to Man United. We should just, you know, congratulate the players, the fans, and also, you know, the manager and the staff for what they've done. And instead of dwelling on our loss, we should, you know, think about next season, the fact that we're actually playing in the Premier League, and obviously we didn't get relegated. And to be honest, you know, the positives from the game, yes, we conceded 2 goals, but earlier on in the season, if we scored, or if the opposition scored that early on in the game, we would have let our guard drop. We would have conceded maybe 2 or 3 more goals before half-time, gone in at 4-0 like the Sunderland game, and, you know, we would have gone on to lose the game. But in this game, unlike the past games, with Allardyce's sort of solidity at the back, he made sure our guard didn't drop further. And like I said, in the beginning of the season, under Alan Pardew, we would be 2 goals down, we would try and go and attack, end up conceding more. But in this game, as soon as we conceded them 2 goals, we were obviously solid for the rest of the encounter, and were able to hold our own and even create a few chances as the game went on. There's sort of few negatives, maybe. Wilfried Zaha constantly getting attacked from Man United players. Like I said already, he was fouled 10 times in this game. You know, the referee, Anthony Taylor, didn't punish any of the players. Like I said, maybe 5 of them could have been cards, because they kept going in for yellow card offence tackles. And obviously, because Zaha kept getting tackled, and the fact that he was our best attacking threat, Man United managed to injure him, and obviously he went off with 10 minutes remaining. And, you know, we understand why. You know, they knew he was our biggest threat, they kept attacking him, should have got booked for the fouls. But unluckily for us, you know, Zaha's gone off injured, but luckily there's no more games now for us, so hopefully over pre-season he can regain his fitness and come back even stronger. But really, the final thing really I've written about is about Sam Allardyce. You know, Sam Allardyce set up Palace the right way. He had the right mindset in the players, but obviously the 2-goal games, you know, it sort of destroyed his plans. You know, he set up the team right. We started playing well, had a few chances within the first minute. Eventually, you know, we conceded them 2 goals, and although the team kept to our sort of plan, and we were able to hold our own and not concede any more goals. But that game just shows that really Allardyce has got a really busy summer, ensuring that obviously Palace are more effective in games like this. You know, Allardyce, yes, he's going to bring in players, and he said he's going to probably bring in maybe 5, 6, 7 players. Certainly he's got to do that and bring in a little bit more quality, and like he says, it's not about just bringing in players, it's about bringing in a player who's better than the player you're letting go. And certainly I trust in him. The fact that he brought in the likes of Mamadou Sakho, Patrick Van Aanholt, Jeffrey Schlupp and Luka Milivojevic, these players are better than the players we had, and they've helped us to improve the team. So it's not only about getting better players, but it's also making sure that we're more effective in games like this. So when we've got teams that are better than us, we need to make sure we can hold our own for longer in the game. Now to move on to my Man of the Match award, but before I do that and give you my Man of the Match and who I thought the biggest influence in the game, I'm now going to give you the 4 nominations for this week's Man of the Match award. But obviously in the last few weeks I've obviously done a Twitter poll to give you my Man of the Match, but after this loss and the fact that I was on Twitter sort of congratulating the team on the fact that we've secured our Premier League status and all things like that, I wasn't able to go onto Twitter and post the Man of the Match poll. And considering we lost the game, and considering people were concentrating more on the fact that we were in the Premier League as opposed to we lost the game to Man United, I didn't really think it was really needed to put a Man of the Match poll out there. But the 4 nominations, I personally picked out the 4 players who I thought had the biggest influence in the game, the best players in my opinion, even though we didn't have the best of games, were Jeffrey Schlupp in defence, James McArthur and Luka Milivojevic in the midfield, and obviously Zaha playing on the wing. So these were the 4 best players I thought were good throughout the game. And although it was quite a lacklustre performance as a whole, I thought that these players stood out. You know, Jeffrey Schlupp, I said it already, he done a pretty good job defensively, and that's probably because Man United kept attacking the opposite side of the pitch, but certainly when called upon he done a job. You know, he covered quite a lot of ground, tried to go forward and attack the ball. Same we can go for McCarthy, you know, came in for the injured Kabay, done a job in behind Benteke, you know, trying to win the ball back, trying to have that attacking presence. And like the rest of the team, he was quite lacklustre in the fact that he was a bit rusty and didn't have as good of influence, but certainly he had quite a lot of energy in the first half. Obviously Luka, you know, he was run all over the park by Pogba in the first half. Didn't really have as good of a game in the first half as he would have normally liked, but after the second half, when Pogba went off, he was probably the best midfielder on the field. He slowly grew into the game, had that free kick which just got saved by the Man United goalkeeper, had a few chances, you know, to have shots or to put passes out wide to start up counter-attacks, so he had good chances to attack throughout the game. And obviously Wilfried Zaha, what is there to say about him? Like he's been for the whole of this season, he kept being our biggest attacking threat, kept attacking down the wings, kept putting crosses in, and there was one cross which managed to get on the head of Benteke, and obviously he hit the post with it. So all of these players showing their worth, Schlupp, McArthur, Luka doing their defensive and attacking works, and then obviously Zaha for being that all and out, you know, attacking threat. And certainly if he had had a few more chances and wasn't getting tackled all over the pitch, he certainly could have ended the game with, you know, even more credit and maybe even more goals or chances or assists. But certainly it's quite an easy one, you know, when you've got someone like Zaha who's been a constant attacking threat throughout the whole game, went back to his old team, didn't let that affect him and continued as he did before, then I certainly think he does deserve the award. So congratulations Wilfried on winning, I think it's your 17th Man of the Match award for this season. But certainly this season you put in an absolutely solid display. You've been our best player by far, certainly deserve the Players Player of the Season and the Fans Player of the Season. You've been absolutely outstanding, and in this game, once again, like the other games this season, you are our best attacking threat. But obviously, you know, I'm going to give credit to the whole team for being much better in the second half. But, you know, like I said, Jeffrey Schlupp, McArthur, Luka, I personally thought that these were our 4 best players and certainly had some influence on the game. So now you've heard my match report, player rankings and my man of the match. That concludes this week's podcast. Now I've got an exclusive interview with Sam Allardyce and Sully Kaikai following the game.
Sully came on today in the Premier League. Unfortunate defeat for the side. What do you feel like the team were lacking today?
It wasn't our usual performance, I think, in terms of energy and drive. At times we could have done a bit better. We done well second half, not to concede at least. And it's a frustrating result, but we've got to come back next season and just go from the start.
And was it nice for you to play at Old Trafford in the Premier League?
Yeah, it was. It's a special moment. It's a special ground to play at. So I'm pleased about that. I'm thankful to the staff and Gaffer for giving me that opportunity.
And how do you feel like you played?
Played all right. Within myself, I know I could have done more, but I'm just ready to come back hungry for next season and try and prove a point.
Yeah, is that the big thing? Get a nice long pre-season in you?
Yeah, that's the main thing. I'm gonna do some work over the off season and come back as fit and sharp as I can.
What's it been like for you the past few months since January? Obviously, you've been in and around the squad. Has it been quite a good learning experience for you?
Yeah, it has been a good learning experience. Training with these guys every day and learning from them. Also, being on the bench and watching from the bench is a good experience for me. So I've taken a lot on board.
Sam, 14th place finish in the table. Unfortunate defeat today. Can we get your thoughts on the game?
Well, they'd only had 2 shots on target and scored 2 goals, which were avoidable, which was a disappointing thing. In fairness, in the reverse, we only had 1 shot on target ourselves, and then 1 that hit the post, and 1 in the very first minute where Patrick Van Aanholt's got clean through and just didn't find a little ball to Christian, which would have put us 1-0 up. So we're disappointed because it could have been so much better, but the most important thing was being safe. Today's second half performance got a lot better. We just wanted the goal just to put Man United under pressure, couldn't find it, and we've ended up losing the last game of the season. But like I said, the most important thing was we got safe last week and didn't need anything in this game. Everybody goes on about Manchester United playing a weakened side. Yes, they are weaker, but they've got young players with talent, and you can see that. So it's first half an under par performance by us, which allowed Man United to get 2 goals, and we couldn't recover from that.
And what's next for you in the next couple of weeks? Is it plans for next season already in full swing?
Oh, they're not in full swing, but they're a good way there because we had to wait so long before we finish them off.
So there you have it. Now you've heard what Sam Allardyce and Solu Kaikai had to say after the game. That concludes this week's podcast for the game against Man United. But as this is the last game of the season, there'll be no more podcasts till the start of next season. But do look out for our season review, new kit and transfer podcasts, which are due to come out over the next few months. Finally, I would like to thank all of our listeners for the support over this season in helping the channel to grow, and although it was a difficult season, we all stuck together and finally got there in the end. Let's all put this season behind us and move on to our next, our record 5th season in the Premier League. Let's all get behind the boys and hope for a better season. But in the meantime, don't forget to up the Palace!